Here's a detailed look at organised crime in the UK, tracing its origins to the present day with a special focus on the gangs of London. Organised crime in Britain dates back centuries, evolving from smuggling gangs, piracy and highwaymen into more structured criminal enterprises. Smuggling gangs. In the 1700s and early 1800s, criminal gangs thrived on smuggling contraband such as tea, tobacco, alcohol and textiles to avoid heavy taxation. The Hawkhurst gang and the Aldington gang dominated the southern coast of England. Protection rackets. By the 19th century, protection rackets became common in industrial cities, with gangs intimidating businesses into paying for security. With mass urbanization and poverty, organized street gangs emerged in cities like London, Manchester and Birmingham. The Peaky Blinders, Birmingham. The infamous gang, active from the 1890s to the 1910s, engaged in illegal bookmaking, robbery and violence. The Sabini gang, London, led by Charles Darby Sabini. This gang dominated racecourse betting and extorted money from bookmakers. The Kray twins, active in East London during the 1950s and 60s, were London's most notorious gangsters. Ronnie and Reggie Kray controlled protection rackets, clubs and illegal gambling. Their violence and high-profile murders eventually led to their arrest in 1968, marking the end of their reign. Meanwhile, the Richardson gang, operating in South London during the same period, were rivals to the Krays. Known for their extreme violence, including torture, their leader, Charlie Richardson, was jailed in 1967. Another significant event during this era was the Great Train Robbery of 1963. This heist, led by Bruce Reynolds, saw a gang steal £2.6 million from a Royal Mail train. Ronnie Biggs, a key participant, later became infamous for escaping prison. As traditional protection rackets declined, UK gangs shifted their focus to drug trafficking. The Arifs, a Turkish Cypriot gang active in London during the 1980s and 90s, controlled heroin and extortion. The Adams family, also known as the Clerkenwell Crime Syndicate, from Islington, London, specialised in drug trafficking, arms dealing and money laundering. By the 1990s, international criminal groups, such as Albanian, Nigerian and Russian mafias, began either collaborating with or competing against UK-based gangs. Today's organised crime in London and across the UK is highly international and technologically advanced. Key criminal enterprises include drug trafficking, where the UK drug market is dominated by gangs importing cocaine and heroin from South America and Afghanistan. County lines gangs in London use young people to transport drugs to rural areas, exploiting vulnerable youths. Cybercrime and fraud are also significant, with organised groups engaging in large-scale fraud, including online scams and identity theft. Human trafficking and modern slavery are prevalent, with Eastern European, Albanian and Vietnamese gangs running human trafficking rings. Notable present-day gangs in London include the Albanian Mafia, which controls much of London's cocaine trade, and the Adams family, which continues to exert influence in drug trafficking and money laundering. Jamaican Yardi gangs have historically been linked to violent drug trade and shootings. Somali gangs influenced by drill music, such as OFB from Tottenham and 410 from Brixton, blend street crime with drill music culture. The UK has cracked down on organised crime with the National Crime Agency, NCA, and the Metropolitan Police targeting criminal networks. However, with globalisation, cybercrime and evolving gang tactics, organised crime remains a major challenge. What actions have the Metropolitan Police taken to reduce corruption among senior police officers that took bribes from gangs, and have they succeeded in eliminating corruption within their ranks? The Metropolitan Police has faced long-standing issues of corruption, particularly involving bribery from gangs and organised crime. While they have taken several actions to reduce corruption among senior officers, corruption has not been fully eliminated and concerns persist. Key actions taken by the Metropolitan Police to reduce corruption include internal investigations and anti-corruption units. Operation Countryman from 1978 to 1982 was a large-scale investigation into police corruption in London, particularly officers linked to organised crime, but it failed to secure major convictions due to police resistance. The Directorate of Professional Standards, DPS, was established to investigate police misconduct and corruption within the Met. Operation Othona in the 1990s and 2000s targeted corrupt officers with links to drug dealers and gangsters. Operation Tiberius in 2002 was a secret report revealing that senior Met officers were taking bribes from London crime syndicates, including the Addams family and drug gangs, but little action was taken. The Independent Office for Police Conduct, IOPC, replaced the old Independent Police Complaints Commission, IPCC, to oversee investigations into police corruption and misconduct. However, critics argue that it lacks real power and is too close to the police to be fully independent. New policies encourage officers to report corrupt colleagues confidentially, but there are reports that whistleblowers still face retaliation within the force. The Met has tightened background checks for recruits and senior officers to prevent infiltration by organised crime. In 2022, an internal review found that hundreds of officers should have failed vetting but were still serving. Specialist anti-corruption teams now monitor financial transactions and potential bribes, and undercover officers are sometimes used to catch corrupt colleagues. Several high-profile arrests and dismissals of senior Met officers have taken place, such as Detective Sergeant Neil Putnam in 2000, who admitted that officers were taking bribes from criminals, and Commander Ali Desai in 2012, who was convicted of corruption and misconduct. A renewed crackdown in 2023 and 2024 has led to dozens of officers being sacked for corruption-related offences. Has corruption been eliminated? No. Corruption has not been fully eliminated. While the Met has made progress, several reports suggest corruption remains an issue. Findings from Operation Tiberius in 2002 are still relevant, and leaked documents in 2014 showed that organised crime still had influence over some police officers. Some officers were suspected of leaking police intelligence to gangs for money. Recent scandals in 2022 and 2023 revealed officers involved in racist, sexist, and criminal behaviour, including protecting gang members. The Casey Review in 2023 found the Met to be institutionally corrupt in some areas. Drug gangs and bent coppers still pose a problem. There are still allegations that drug cartels, particularly Albanian and Turkish gangs, bribe officers for inside information. Officers have been caught tampering with evidence or leaking police operations. So, is the Met winning the fight against corruption? Some progress has been made through dismissals, task forces, and new policies. However, corruption persists, particularly in relation to gang influence, drug money, and police misconduct. The Met is not yet fully trusted by the public, and many believe more radical reforms are needed. Yes, gangs in London are still very active, but their power and influence have evolved rather than disappeared. While some traditional organised crime groups like the Krays or Richardsons have faded, newer, more violent and more international gangs now dominate the city's criminal underworld. Has their power been reduced? Some older criminal groups have lost influence due to police crackdowns and changing crime trends. But overall, gang activity has not been eliminated. In fact, in some areas, modern gangs are more dangerous than ever, particularly in drug trafficking, violence and cybercrime. Which gangs are still active in London? International crime syndicates are now the most powerful. The Albanian mafia dominates cocaine trafficking in London, working directly with Colombian cartels. Turkish and Kurdish gangs control the heroin trade and have influence over weapons smuggling. Russian and Eastern European mafias are involved in money laundering, fraud and arms smuggling. Nigerian and West African fraud networks specialize in scams, cybercrime and human trafficking. Traditional British crime families are still active but less dominant. The Addams family, also known as the Clerkenwell Crime Syndicate, was once London's most feared crime family and is still involved in drugs, contract killings and extortion. The Arifs, a Turkish Cypriot crime family, are known for violent enforcement and links to the heroin trade. Modern street gangs are more violent and ruthless. County lines gangs control drug distribution across the UK, using teenagers to transport heroin and crack cocaine. Drill music gangs, such as OFB from Tottenham, 410 from Brixton, and 67 from Lambeth, use music to promote gang culture, leading to real-life violence. Somali and Caribbean gangs, known as Yardis, are involved in knife crime, shootings, and robbery. How have gangs changed? They have become more violent and younger. Gang members are often as young as 13 or 14, carrying knives or firearms. Fatal stabbings and shootings linked to gang disputes are at record highs. Many gangs now use social media and encrypted apps to organize crimes and recruit members. Fraud and cybercrime are now major income sources for London gangs. County lines expansion has seen London-based gangs now control drug networks in smaller UK towns like Birmingham, Liverpool and Manchester. They exploit vulnerable young people to move drugs across the country. Increased police pressure from the Met Police and NCA has cracked down on gang activity, but many gang leaders simply operate from abroad, especially Albanian and Turkish bosses. Has gang power been reduced? Some individual gangs have collapsed and police have jailed many leaders, but gang crime has shifted to new, more high-tech and ruthless models. Gangs are still powerful, but their influence now depends on drugs, cybercrime, and county lines rather than old-school racketeering. Here's a detailed breakdown of London's most powerful gangs and how police are tackling them today. The Albanian Mafia is considered the most powerful gang in London. They have taken over London's cocaine trade, working directly with Colombian cartels. They control wholesale drug supply, meaning street gangs now buy from them instead of rival UK dealers. They have a brutal reputation. If a dealer doesn't pay, they're often killed or tortured. Their criminal activities include cocaine trafficking, human trafficking and prostitution, money laundering and weapons smuggling. The Met and NCA have tried to target their leaders, but many operate from abroad in Albania and Spain. Major drug busts have seized tons of cocaine, but new traffickers quickly replace the arrested ones. Undercover stings have disrupted some supply chains, but police struggle to infiltrate their networks. The Adams family, also known as the Clerkenwell Crime Syndicate, are old-school London crime lords. They were one of London's last traditional crime families, once dominating protection rackets, contract killings, and high-level drug trafficking. Founded by Terry Patrick and Tommy Adams in the 1980s, their criminal activities include drug trafficking, hitmen for hire, money laundering, and major financial crimes. Patrick Adams was arrested in 2016 and sentenced in 2017. Terry Adams served jail time, but is still believed to be influential. The gang has weakened, but its associates still operate under new names. County lines gangs are the most widespread UK drug network. London gangs now control drug markets in smaller UK towns. They use teenagers, some as young as 12 to 14, to deliver drugs by train or bus. They are extremely violent, using knives, acid attacks, and even guns to control territory. Their criminal activities include the crack cocaine and heroin trade, child exploitation, violence and stabbings, and modern slavery. Hundreds of county lines drug operations have been shut down in the last 5 years. The Met, NCA and regional forces have arrested thousands of dealers. However, gangs keep recruiting new children faster than police can stop them. Drill music gangs like OFB from Tottenham, 410 from Brixton and 67 from Lambeth use drill music to promote their gang culture. Their songs feature real threats and references to murders. Many gang-related murders and stabbings are linked to drill beefs or feuds. Their criminal activities include street robberies and muggings, violent attacks on rivals, drug dealing and weapons possession. The Met Police have tried banning drill music videos, but gangs just upload them elsewhere. Special task forces monitor drill gang members, and arrests of key members have reduced some violence, but drill music still fuels gang wars. Yardie gangs, the Jamaican connection, have been active in London since the 1980s. They were feared for extreme violence, but their power has declined in recent years. Their criminal activities included the crack cocaine trade, gun crime, and armed robberies. Many Yardie leaders were jailed or deported in the 2000s. They still exist, but Albanian and Somali gangs have taken over their territory. How are the police tackling London's gangs? The Met Police and NCA are using a combination of tactics to fight gangs. These include undercover operations to infiltrate gangs and catch their leaders, mass arrests and raids, social media monitoring to track gang members online, gang injunctions banning gang members from certain areas, and anti-drill music campaigns to remove violent music videos. But the problem is that gangs constantly recruit new members, and many leaders operate from outside the UK. Drugs and violence are still increasing in some areas. So, are London gangs losing power? Some older gangs like Yardies and the Adams family have weakened. But new gangs like the Albanian Mafia, County Lines and drill gangs are more violent and organised. The police are making arrests, but the problem is far from solved.